Welcome back. We are Gentlemen United and you are in the man cave. When you hear gender studies, the first thing you think is that this is a program focused primarily and in some cases singularly on women's issues. John Davis, now retired and living in the south of France, has been a prosecutor 3 times in his 35-year career. He was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1953 and educated at Case Western Reserve University, Seattle University School of Law, and New York University School of Law, where he earned his postdoctoral. John is also fluent in 7 languages, including ancient Latin and Greek. He has traveled the world over many times and has represented clients in his 35-year career, such as the United States government and the Federation of Russia. He has held positions such as Assistant Attorney General, United States Speaker, and Assistant District Attorney, Chief Wing JAG, U.S. Air Force Auxiliary, and Supreme Court Law Clerk. For most of his career in civil law, John was a successful international lawyer practicing in many nations around the world. John is also an author of an online course that you can sign up for through Udemy called Gender Studies for Men. Trigger warning. If discussing gender issues with a focus on men is going to offend you, I'll pause for a moment and invite you to stop watching right now, and you can go on to the next YouTube clip. This will likely be too much for some people to handle. Okay, with that out the way, let's go on. Joining me tonight all the way from the south of France is John Davis, and of course you, our viewers. I'm Sean Best. John, welcome.
Sean, thank you for that kind introduction, and I'm looking forward to this program today.
And thank you so much for joining us. I know you're about 7 hours ahead of us at this point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I had a nice long nap this afternoon, so I'm ready to go the distance this evening.
Okay, sounds good. All right, John, so before we get into the content about your course, which I took, by the way, and thank you for making that available, tell us a bit about yourself and some of the highlights of your career in law.
Oh my, that goes back quite a way. After 35 years, I'm not sure what are the highlights and what were the pitfalls. I really never intended to practice law or do anything in law. I went to law school as a businessman when I was about 30 years old, and then got out and was very successful, got rating as first in my class and on the law review, and continued that success in the legal profession. So I kind of stayed with it for a while. My first love has always been business. But on the side, I noticed really from the first time I started practicing how the system was so biased against men. So that became a principal focus of what I tried to do during that 35 years. And now that I'm retired, I find that it's something that I would like to devote most of my efforts and energy towards.
And I know that a lot of people, myself included, really appreciate the work that you do. I think I can't remember how exactly I came across your work, but I know that one of the groups that you have on Facebook, I think is called Gender Studies for Men.
That's correct. Right.
Yeah, after the course, and I came across that, and I read a couple of the posts, and I was thinking, we think a lot alike, so I need to follow your group as well. So I really appreciate all the stuff that you do, and from a very objective standpoint, which I think is one of the challenging aspects of this thing. But you know what? I took the course shortly after you launched it back in, I think it was September. I think I took it in August. I had a promotional opportunity to go in and take a look at it early. It raised my awareness to a number of things that even I had not heard of, and I've heard it quite a bit as it relates to men's issues. And I think I did okay in the quizzes. I don't know if you saw my results. If they're worth talking about.
I did. As I recall, you scored 100% on all your quizzes. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's yeah, great. So I think I do have somewhat of a clue, but I'm going to defer to you on some of these questions because I want the audience who is watching this to sort of hear hear from you on some of these topics. So now, when did you come up with the idea of authoring a Gender Studies for Men course? And what prompted it? Is there a need for a gender studies course for men? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, I think our culture has a lot of difficulties with a balance between men and women. Without blaming anyone or attacking anyone, the fact is we've put an emphasis on alleviating changes in the social contract for women so that they have a fair lifestyle in our culture. But we still have not adjusted as we need to adjust the social contract for men. Men are still incurring 95% of on-the-job casualties. Men are still underpaid. Men are not the benefit of a system of medical research and healthcare that permits them to have the same life expectancy as women. We have many problems with men being, for instance, forced to register for the draft where women are exempt. And we could go on and on and on with a list of probably 40 or 50 items where gender equality became feasible and was effected for women, but not for men. So I think it is a priority, and I think our culture is beginning to undergo a paradigm shift where more and more people are beginning to recognize that men need equality as much as women have had it.
You know, I think that this interview is quite timely. Yesterday was November the 19th, which was Men's International Day. And I did do a brief post on that. And, you know, I've seen a lot of posts where people would say, well, why do men need International Men's Day? They have every other day of the year. And the reality of it is, the post I made was, well, you know, when you watch the news about men doing this and men doing that, most of the time they're talking about the 0.01% of the rich, famous, and powerful men in the world, and then associating whatever it is that they do or don't do with the other 99.9% of us who are just holding everyday jobs and making certain that the roads work and the lights stay on and the water comes on when you turn the tap on. So I think a lot of people tend to associate or to broad brush, you know, the Weinstein scandals and all this other stuff across all the rest of us who are just trying to get through life. Oh, now you have content in this course from very well-known men's issues advocates like Janice Fiamengo, who's a professor at the University of Ottawa in Canada. You have a powerhouse, Karen Strawn, who's from, I believe, Saskatchewan. You have the famous Miss Erin Pissy from the UK, and Dr. Michelle Elliott, to name just a few. So you have some very reputable individuals who are very knowledgeable and very well known in the men's rights arena. One thing I noticed is that the course is very well put together. You have audio lectures, you have links to videos, downloadable MP4s and PDF files, and the quizzes, of course, at the end that you mentioned earlier. Now, there's 4 sections in your course. I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on each of those 4 sections and just ask you for some information on them. So the first section you have is called Introduction with a Focus on Key Men's Rights Vocabulary, which is interesting because you start off with, you know, vocabulary, which I noticed about 3 or 4 of those words I noticed were words that you very rarely ever hear. Most people don't know what they mean. So I'm going to ask you if you can give us a quick definition of some of them. So the first word that came up, it was androphobia. Androphobia mean?
Androphobia has 2 meanings. One, a medical meaning where androphobia represents a clinical problem with mostly women who are afraid of men and masculinity. The second meaning is a more popular meaning in the common vocabulary of people, and that is women who are afraid of men, oftentimes because they're hysterical, and have been programmed by the media to fear men. Movies such as Sleeping with the Enemy, for instance, vastly exaggerate men's dangers to women, but they're very popular because people like to be frightened, and people like to have excuses, some people, for their ill feelings towards men. So the media has become probably the biggest opponent of gender equality from men's perspective as anyone, because it perpetuates fallacies and stereotypes about men, such as that men are dangerous or exploitative of women. The vast majority of men have nurturing instincts with regard to women. And androphobia is something that cancels out those realizations for women.
There are a lot of universities where when they have freshman students come in, one of the first lectures that the male students have to sit through is a lecture that basically says to them, you are potential rapists, you're dangerous, and it basically starts introducing the concept of, to these students who are just coming to school for the first time, that you are a threat. And I'm wondering if, in your view, in your studies, if you've seen any, if that contributes to androphobia in university and educational settings.
Absolutely, Sean. The educational system is probably the second to the media in terms of promoting hatred and fear of men. The education system in our country simply is perpetuating gender myths about men from the Dark Ages and medieval times.
If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, join our Facebook page called The Man Cave by Gentlemen United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future discussion topics. Please like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe by clicking the Gentlemen United icon. I promise it's free. Thanks again for joining us in The Man Cave.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in The Man Cave.